It began as a simple mission, the kind I had faced countless times before. The morning fog clung to the trees as we rode through the damp forests of England, the soft crunch of hooves against the wet earth the only sound accompanying us. My cloak, heavy with moisture, billowed behind me, and I couldn't help but glance up at Lord Edward, whose presence was like a force of nature. There, ahead of me, he moved effortlessly on his horse, his posture regal and confident. He was my lord, my master, the one I had sworn my loyalty to with my life. His nobility and grace were unmatched, and I was a knight, a servant and protector. If you want to uncover what fate awaits us next, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's much more of this tale to come. I had always accepted the lines between us, knowing my place and the unspoken boundary that defined our roles. His leadership was strong, and I admired him deeply for it, admired everything about him, from his calm authority to the way he seemed to command not just respect, but affection from everyone around him. But despite my loyalty, I couldn't help but notice the way my heart would beat faster when he looked my way, the heat that would rise to my cheeks when our eyes briefly locked. There was always something, a pull, a quiet longing that I couldn't name. I buried it deep, locking it away where it couldn't stir the truth. It was the unspoken rule, and I never allowed myself to think of it too long. It wasn't that I didn't have the capacity for love, but I had never once imagined it could come in this form. That evening, we set up camp as the sun dipped below the horizon. The crackling of the fire was the only sound that filled the air now, save for the occasional creak of leather as I shifted beside him. We were alone, a rare occurrence, and though the fire provided warmth, there was a strange chill in the air, something unspoken, something that seemed to hang between us like a thread too fine to touch but too strong to break. Edward leaned back against a tree, his gaze lingering on the flames. I studied the way the fire danced in his eyes, how it made them burn brighter, like they were alive with something hidden. He turned to face me, the flickering shadows casting his features in a soft, almost ethereal light. "Owen," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft, "you have been by my side for many years now. You have seen me at my worst." I offered him a small, almost automatic smile, trying to keep the words simple, loyal. "I will always stand beside you, my lord." But something about his words made my chest tighten, a sudden awareness threading through me. My eyes met his, and for the first time in years, I didn't look away. There was a tension there, a crack in the stoic mask he wore, something vulnerable. My heart stuttered. His gaze didn't shift, and I found myself caught in it, like a bird trapped in a hunter's snare. "Do you ever think of the future, Owen?" His voice was almost a whisper. "Of what lies beyond all this?" I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. The question lingered between us, heavy and uncertain. There were so many answers I wanted to give, answers I had never dared to voice. But I couldn't let them slip. My loyalty had always been the one thing that defined me. I couldn't risk changing that. "I think of serving you, my lord," I replied, the words almost automatic, "and nothing more." He studied me for a long moment, his eyes searching my face, trying to read something that I was too terrified to let him see. His lips parted slightly as though he were about to speak again, but then the moment passed, and with it, the spell that had momentarily bound us. The crackling of the fire was the only sound that filled the space between us now. I quickly turned my attention to the flames, hoping the heat would chase the strange coldness that had settled in my chest. The pull between us was still there, heavy in the air. Neither of us spoke of it again, but I knew deep down that things had changed. The quiet bond we shared had grown into something more, something that neither of us was ready to admit. But it was there, unspoken, dangerous, and I had no idea how much longer I could keep it buried. Days turned into weeks, and our bond only deepened. We were always together, whether in the midst of battle or in the quiet moments of respite when the world seemed to fade away. It was during those quieter moments that I felt the shift the most. Edward's gaze upon me became heavier, laden with unspoken words. I began to wonder if he felt the same way I did. One evening, as we sat in the war room, planning our next move against an enemy force, I felt Edward's fingers brush mine. It was brief, barely a touch, but it sent a shiver through me. My heart skipped a beat, and I dared not look at him, for fear that my face would betray the turmoil inside me. "Owen," he said, his voice low, "you are not just a knight to me. You are my closest confidant, my right hand." There was something in his tone, a vulnerability I had never heard before. I dared to meet his gaze. "I would give anything for you, my lord. Anything." His eyes softened, his lips curving in a smile that seemed both sad and understanding. "And I you, Owen." His voice dropped further, almost a whisper. "But this is a world that will not understand our bond. You know this." I nodded, the weight of his words settling in my chest. This was forbidden. But there was something in the way he looked at me, something that told me he, too, felt the same pull. The warmth between us was undeniable. We were in this together, bound by more than just duty. But how long could we keep our secret? How long could we hide what we had come to feel for each other? The first time I kissed him was unintentional. It happened after a skirmish. Bloodied and bruised, we found ourselves alone in the aftermath, standing in the dimly lit tent where our camp had been set up. I was tending to a wound on my shoulder when he stepped closer, his presence overwhelming as always. "Owen," he whispered, "you are injured. You should rest." His hand moved toward my shoulder, but before it could settle, I turned to face him, the proximity too much to bear. Our gazes locked, and in that moment, everything, the war, the world, faded away. It was just him and me, standing on the edge of something we both feared and desired. Without thinking, I leaned in, capturing his lips with mine. The kiss was soft, hesitant at first, but then it deepened, as though our bodies were both starved for this moment. His hands found their way to my face, caressing the roughness of my skin as if memorizing every inch of me. I didn't pull away. Neither of us did. When we finally parted, both breathless, I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of regret. But all I saw was something far more dangerous, longing. "We cannot," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I know," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. "But I can't stay away from you. We thought we could keep our secret." But word travels fast, and in the halls of the court, whispers began to spread. Enemies began to circle, sensing something beneath the surface, something that threatened to undo us. The court was full of treachery, and we were in the midst of it. Our bond was a threat to those who sought to tear us down. It was in the midst of one such conversation that I saw the true cost of our love. I had been summoned to the king's chamber, and as I entered, the words that greeted me were sharp, cutting. "Owen, you have been seen," Lord Grantham said, his eyes narrow with malice. "Seen with Lord Edward. I am not blind to what is happening between you two." My heart pounded. I opened my mouth to deny it, to claim that it was nothing but a misunderstanding, but Edward's voice stopped me. He entered the room, standing tall and proud despite the weight of the situation. "This is not a crime," Edward said firmly. "Our bond is not something to be hidden or scorned. And if the court is willing to turn against us for it, then I will fight for what is mine." The night came when we had no choice but to face the inevitable. The king had made his decision, our love was to be punished, and we would be torn apart. But Edward and I stood together, side by side, knowing that we could not live without one another. "We fight, Owen," Edward said softly, his voice full of resolve. We fight for our hearts, for our honor. I nodded, my own resolve hardening. For you, my lord, I would face anything. I would face them all. Together we made our choice. A choice to stand tall, to fight for each other, even in a world that wished to tear us apart. Because what we had was worth fighting for. And in the end, that was all that mattered.